So I finished Sparking Youth and I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. It's closer to a slice of life title than like the moe ones that I assumed it would be. It's made by Saga Planets, the people that pushed out Kinkoi. I liked it a lot more than Kinkoi, but Kinkoi has like higher highs. Sparking Youth is just a lot more consistent with what it's trying to do and it generally works out. And that's rather funny considering how many writers this apparently has. B&DB doesn't specify who worked on what, but one I can tell is probably the Sisters route. Half the time it felt like I was reading a Smee title, so I'd be surprised if the one that wrote for Smee didn't write this route. It actually ended up being one of my favorite routes out of the bunch. Sure, not the highest highs in there, but the vibe it went for was amazingly consistent. Anyway, Sparking Youth is about this guy called Yu, and he's the kid that most people have seen at least once in school. They've been dealt a bad hand and they're a lot more mature than the average kid. There's always varying levels of it. The more normal one's the kid that has to take care of all of his siblings with their parents like working all the time just to get by. This guy has no parents, so he works to pay off his and his sister's like living expenses, and outside of that, all he does is study due to the like scholarship requirements. You're not meant to really think about it, it's just the setting to push him out to enjoy his remaining time before being an adult. Like, his part-time paycheck wouldn't be covering all of his fucking taxes anyway, so like, what are we doing here? We know it. It's just a thing here and there. It's like, hey, this is the reason why he's going through it, and that's it. The music is around as catchy as in Kinkoi. I remember their OP being more of like a jazzy funk. The opening song on this one is closer to like a poppy track. Kind of reminds you of like that mermaid anime from like 20 years ago. The ending track goes into rock. I personally like it, but it also feels kind of weirdly placed. It feels like something that would come from like Overdrive, but then again, Secret Oblige just came out and I doubt their OP is going to match their title like theme anyway. So hey, maybe it's just a new thing. Either way, I only brought up the tracks because a specific one sounds like it came from Nukitashi. I loaded up and they're pretty similar. Funny thing is, I think there's also like two routes where Yu goes to like shop for shirts and everybody that shows up ends up like mocking his fashion choices because it's just random words on the shirt, or I think like one time was like a whale. So I'm not sure if this is just some like weird cliche that I'm not aware of, but it's pretty funny to me. Tangent aside, Sparking takes around 30 to 35 hours, though I really stalled out hard in like a specific route. There's 6 routes in total. I went in the order of Riri, Shiori, Nagiko, Ritsu, Hibiki, and then Kikka. 2 of them are locked. I'll go about it later on. Riri is the rich girl. She's mostly about volunteering and helping out with like a side of trying to outplay Yu in cards. Yu has a lot of skills under his belt, but basically he's just good at perceiving like body cues and deception, shit like that, and working around that kind of stuff to win. People call him like a magician, it's fine, he has a lot of little tricks. Anyway, she's into that and wants to beat him, but it's a minor point in the route. Her route is great if you like the kind, rich, like girl archetype. There's not much in terms of plot or like a drama sequence or even a set piece. Like, you consider one part near the end to be one of them, but it's resolved before you even get started, and that's normally something I complained about like in the main girl from like Wagamama Spec or whatever the fuck it was called. But this one is just well done and it never tries to make you think it's anything else. This route is a lot more front loaded where getting together takes up the major focus of it. Shiori is basically a robot at the start. It's another archetype that either stays in this position to the end or its scenario is based on pulling her out of that mindset. It's the latter in this title, and honestly it does it well. It's rather cute for the most part. Maybe it's a little drawn out, but it still works well. This was the character I initially thought would be like in the bottom tier. It's not something I really care about, but in the end I'd probably put her as tight as like second place type of thing. She's also the only one that has like options in the H scenes, and it's honestly kind of weird. I don't know if it's meant to be kind of a joke because there's one writer that handles like a lot of H scenes, like, was this you? I don't know. What she's about is kind of a spoiler in the most minuscule ways. It's something like you'll pick up right away. But basically she has a job and she's having trouble with how to go about it going forward. So the route is mostly about you helping her out. This one is like the opposite of Riri, where most of the focus gets put in the latter half. This and the falling route are probably the two that don't focus on you at all. Nagiko is a combo of like the athletic girl and super innocent like flustered girl. Before starting, I thought either she or Hibiki would be my favorite ones, and that's only because Hibiki has like a skateboard. She has like fingerless gloves, she's kind of a tomboy, and will take over Dad's dojo. She's supposed to be the cool one, and I'm into that, but that didn't pan out, and she's actually dead last for me. It's like, oh damn, that sucks. She's what I call like an emotionally looping kind of person, and that's kind of what a route is. It's two things that kept on looping. Gets called cute, gets flustered, and either accepts it or chickens out. Looped that for a while, and now they're together, alright, and now, okay, that arc's finished, and now it's about sports. She's really good at it, but at the time she starts failing a lot, and that becomes a new loop. The loop is like a loop that took a while when it was something Rocket Power handled like in 15 minutes, and now I'm thinking if anybody even remembers Rocket Power at all, because I'm fucking old. Anyways, her route was pretty boring outside of the near end. It's not original, but it's a normal set piece that I like, and it's still done well here. I would spoil it in the sense that you can then just not bother with a route, but I think every route has to be done to unlock the last one, so you're screwed no matter what. I'll just talk about the spoilers. I think they were going for like a Get Moe thing, and that normally works fine, but wasn't really handled well if that was the case here. She stayed more on the cutesy side after the common story, and Yu was also basically like a supporting character in her route. I was like, oh, you're kind of lame here. You're pretty boring. Ritsu is a sister. She's locked until you finish one route. In terms of enjoyment, she's at the top of these characters. The fun thing is she herself isn't all that interesting. The route gives out extra background info on you and the family dynamic, and there's some progression of what he's going through and what he has to deal with, but she herself is more of a gag character. She's basically Chinami from Hoshi Memo done well, in the sense that they just kept on going with her being like a gag character. There's nothing more to it. And that's all I want from a SME writer. It's fine. I liked it a lot. Hibiki's a funny one because I was expecting skateboarding, a lot of skateboarding, and there's basically zero skateboarding. It was pretty what the fuck. Like, I think I saw her once or twice here and there, and it's not part of the plot at all. It's just like, oh, she's skateboarding here, she's skateboarding to school or some shit. Like, really? It's on the screen, it's on the cover page, what the fuck? She's the energetic one and outgoing, basically pushing you to do stuff with her all the time. A lot of the route is both of them acting like their age and just bumping heads, and it's generally funny because they both want to be right and they're both fucking stupid and they just keep on bashing each other. It's like, no, you confess, no, you confess. And it's like, it could have ended up where it overstayed its welcome, but it knew when to stop, so that's great. There's also some background info with you on this one, and that is used to lead like to Kikka's route, and it's to the point that I'm not sure if Kikka unlocks after Hibiki or after doing them all, but I'm going for the latter since it handles what it's going for better. Anyways, for the most part, her route was going to tie with Riri, where it has this archetype and it's done well if you like this specific one. It's like, hey, you did your job, but also includes a higher in here. So it basically combined like Nagiko's moment, made it better, and still has a pretty fun time until the moment hits. It's on like tier 3 in terms of like enjoyment, but in tier 2 if you're going for like the plot or the slice of life stuff. Kikka is the other locked route. I'll cover in the spoilers, but basically your personality is the same as like Nagatoro, or I think it's Uzuki or whatever fuck her name is. It was like the small gap of years where all these characters are really popular. And it's great if you're a fan of that kind of character, and I'm generally a fan. It's usually my favorite part where I'm reading like Anatomy as well, where they're all shit talking each other. But I guess it's more of my culture and my childhood, where in the 90s, that was a thing that you just do. Like if you weren't shit talking each other, like you weren't really friends, you're just being nice to each other. Anyways, this is where stuff is going on. It's nothing that comes out of left field, but it's paced well, and you can notice all the steps that it took to get to that point. It's well done. If anything, it's one of those things where, hey, maybe you don't like half of these, or like I read 2, I'm not a fan of it. Still try to get to at least control skip everything until Kikka's route, and like, hey, maybe you like it. Overall, I liked it a lot more than Kinkoi. It didn't feel like the other routes were done just to pad out the time. Sure, I think some of the routes were done better than the other ones, but that's something you have to expect with that many writers here. It still keeps the same feeling of that it tries to be more than run-of-the-mill moe, and it works well. The title is just about going out and having fun while you still can, or even making some time here and there for your hobbies that you like doing. I think it's been done better in other titles, but Kikka's route still ends it well enough. I'd still push like Summer Pockets over this, but that's just my bias. This is more like a 7 or maybe like a low 8. It's a 7 for more of my normal type of grading where it centers more on writing or what it's trying to do or its plot. But taking anything technical out and it's just enjoying a title for the genre that it is, and it's close to like a higher 8 or maybe even a low 9. It's like, hey, it's really done well for what it's trying to do. It tries to be something more by the end. It's like, hey, it's great. It's like the NBA game, I forgot, I think it was 18, maybe 19, where it had a pretty decent story mode where the friend tries to constantly leech the shit out of the main character and all this drama's happening all the time. I think the dad dies, I don't remember. The plot wasn't amazing, it was pretty generic in terms of like story writing, but it was also something I would never expect from, hey, this is a multiplayer game. It's like, holy shit, this was nice. It's the same kind of reasoning here. I got more than I expected, so the grading's a little higher than that. I still think like Suki Suki's maybe a better title as well. It's still comedic here and there, and I think the endings were better and there's more things going on. But overall, this title's fine. It's just kind of unfair sometimes where it's like, hey, I think I put Chaos Head, the original, like a 7 as well. And Chaos Head had a lot more going on than this one, and it had a lot more things, trying at least. But this one's like, hey, it's the vibe, it's comfy, it's nice, it's funny, and that's what it is. It's one of those things, a lot of scoring is weird like that. For the spoilers, I'll just be going over a few things. Nagiko's thing was mainly on surfing and how her performance is based on her confidence and the constant pressure of trying to be the best. The pressure concaves and she starts to fail all the fucking time for the most basic shit. So she falters and she thinks she might as well quit. The dojo site was barely brought up in this part, and in the beginning she's like, oh, she'd do both and all that shit. And honestly, the dojo site was more used for like a deterrence for the romance section in the first half. It was barely brought up after that, and it's kind of sad because like, hey, that was a point and now it's just ignored. Anyways, it's right about being supportive to your partner, but it went to the lengths that you was barely a character and it's more of a yes man. It just became pretty boring. The finale was fine where he bets that he can beat her ass on running up all these stairs to reach a shrine, and that she'd be forced to keep on surfing if he wins, and if she hates it she better beat him and she has to win, otherwise she has no say otherwise. It's a fine moment, but a lot of the stuff beforehand actually ruined whatever feelings I had for this. I was like, hey, this part was fine, but this all is like 90%, not even 90, let's say 60% was ass. It was actually done better in Hibiki's route. To be fair, it was still kind of rushed, but the emotional spike was done better in it because it's just them venting about everything they were keeping inside. So it's more of a fixing their lack of communication in that regard. So let's say in a few years, what you'll remember about the title is like, hey, it's Kikka and Hibiki's route, or at least this part. It's not gonna be Nagiko's section at all. Shiori was about being a VTuber. It's pretty apparent right from the start, but basically it's about Shiori not knowing where to go next. She's stuck on where she is and her character stagnating. I think she has like 3,000 subscribers or whatever. And that later becomes a confusion of what she wants to show with her VTuber and how she feels right now with you. And she's like, holy shit, who am I? What's my real character? All that kind of crap. And it's done well enough. I wouldn't call it interesting, but what it was written is like, all right, I understand what's going on and it's fine. I think the VTuber section was actually the most boring part, and it was just an excuse of having her and you interact with each other, which the character interactions in between were great. Kiki's whole thing is about like this youth count, and that youth count fluctuates a lot depending on what he does. And they consider it as like, oh, it's a quirk that she has, but anybody reading knows there's probably more to it than that. And that's basically just a different name for life force. Apparently the lower you have, the more unfortunate things will go for you. So if she sees a massive dive, then probably some kind of accident is going to happen, and either you're going to die or you're going to be in an accident or whatever, right? Yu's youth count was never the highest. He swam to this location to find some gems for Hibiki. He was like all under the water and shit. It was some kind of myth for relationship stuff. It's like, hey, you get these things, you give it to her, you'll be together all the time or whatever. Anyways, he falls in and he basically drowns, and Kikka pushes her own account into him so he can survive, and that put her into a massive negative, so she went into a coma. But the rules was it like, hey, it dwindles down and something happens and you die. But she basically did like an integer underflow, and it wrapped around to her not dying, and she became like a ghost. Anyways, you lived, but now he's always in like a low youth count, and a lot of other shit happens to him all the time. So it's like his family got divorced or whatever. Not really. The wife just ran away. The mom just ran away, and then the dad died from, I think, sickness. I think it was just really sad. I forgot. I'm pretty sure he didn't kill himself. Apparently having fun with people that already have a high count kind of adds to their own pile. So once Hibiki left due to her parents moving for a new place, I think it was a work-related thing, the use count went back to like the minimal amount. That's kind of how the story goes. Kikka wants him to join and do random shit to keep his count up. They spent too much time together and Yu falls for her. Turns out she's been steadily adding to her own count to the point that she's now getting closer to 0. So her own logic exception is now finally expiring, and the story goes from there. It's great, and it's a lot more than what you expect from it. There's a lot of points that haven't make sense, to the point that you knew more or less what was going on. Even by like Hibiki's location, maybe by the last half, you're like, oh, this is what Kikka's going to be about. And I assume the sparking youth thing on the title, it just points to you. And it's like at the end, I think Kikka's route is like the true route. It basically starts overflowing to the point where he has way too much and it affects everybody else, and it's a good thing. And that's how this plot pretty much ends. On a side note, this would be the last one for the year. I thought of a tier list that I always do at like mid-December or whatever. I've been pretty busy and my normal rate has been pretty abysmal. I think I've been reading Chaos Head for like the last 2 months or some shit. Oh my god. Pretty sure I'm not even going to finish Dairoku at this speed at all. But yeah, that's basically where I am.